Guys, so today we're going to be talking about the differences in the education system in Ukraine versus in the UK. I'm joined today by George, who is one of my students in English school, and Vlad, who is an expert in the education system in Ukraine and the UK. And actually that's how all three of us know each other. So George is one of my students and Vlad is the CEO of a language school that I work at here in Kiev. So, George, tell us a bit about yourself. What stage are you at in the education system? Where are you? And maybe what are your plans?
Alright, so currently I'm studying at school. I'm 11th grader and I'm gonna take the final exam at school just in 2 months.
And what's that called? Zeno?
Yeah, Zeno, yeah.
So you haven't done that yet, or you're about to do it?
I'm about to do it.
So yeah, we kind of have, well, I guess it's a little bit different. With us, if it's the first one before uni, it's A-levels. So is that the stage you're at? It's similar to A-levels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we need to talk about that the fact that in general the education system in the UK is 12 years or even 13 years, yeah. And in Ukraine it's only 11. And it goes to 12 for those who started the school in the first grade just recently. So we have this big gap between the school and university. That's why we need to fill it in somehow by adding some programs to this. So basically, after the secondary school here in Ukraine, it's quite difficult to get into the first grade, into the first university stage in the UK, like a bachelor degree.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest difference, because in England it's as soon as you turn 16, as soon as you've finished with like standard education, like mandatory education, you go to A-levels. Well, you've got two choices really. Well, technically you've got four. You can go into an apprenticeship, you work in a business, and you do some course at the same time, you're studying and working. You can just go into the workforce, which probably isn't the most recommended choice. Some people do it. Then you've got sixth form, which is year 12 and year 13. So at this stage, you're 16 to 18. That's where you do your A-levels. You normally do it in a school. And then you've got some people who go off and they go to college, but this is BTEC and it's kind of all coursework. You have some exams as well. But normally you go from mandatory school, then you go into your A-levels, and then you go off to uni. That's the path that I took. So
for Ukraine, the mandatory school that you are talking about is something a bit like ninth grade when we finish. So all the students get the certificate, but it's not completed secondary education. So in order to have a completed secondary education, you need to finish 11 and grade 10 and grade 11, as George is doing now, so he's finishing.
Usually after 9th grade people go either to a college or they start working. Also they can remain at school, I think, and keep on studying for 2 years more.
I think the biggest difference is how you guys call each year. So it's like the American system, right? Kindergarten, preschool, then high school.
Yeah.
Well, what's the one when you're like 6 to 11? What's that called?
No, we have like a primary school, secondary school, and high school.
Yeah, because in America it's like kindergarten something, and then high school, and then and they call university college, Whereas in England we call college is a different. It's below university. It's the level below university. That's when you're 16 to 18.
It's actually quite interesting topic also, the differences between colleges and universities, because quite a lot of my clients, especially parents, they mixed it up, the names. Because for example, even in the UK, the higher institution like university can also be named as a college, like King's College London. Yeah, it's not a college, it's a university. Or UCL, University College London. So it's one of the higher ranking university in the UK, but then some parents ask me, why should my kids study in a college? Like I want a university.
Yeah. So it's the namings of it. Yeah, it's funny because in England it's called university, but then you have some facilities that have college in their name.
Yeah.
So okay, tell me about the final exam. What subjects are you doing?
Alright, so usually we have a choice between like really many subjects. I guess there are 10 of them or something, but usually people pick just 3 of them or 4 of them. And personally I picked Ukrainian literature and language, then math and English. That's it. And usually it's a normal choice for people. Usually they pick this one.
Yeah, because after 16 you don't have to do maths and science anymore in England. You can choose to. So we have, okay, so the education system, you have nursery and then you go into primary school.
Yeah.
Then you go into secondary school. When you're in primary school, you've got your SATs. In year 2 and year 6. So this is when you're 7 and 11. You take these 2 tests, and that is the one that chooses which school you go to. And then from there, you've got your GCSEs. Our school did it really differently. So it should be from year 7 to year 7, 8 and 9. You're doing all subjects, and then you specialise when you get into year 9. But we did it, then you specialise in year 10, but we did it a little bit different. We specialised a year earlier. It was like a new, now I think it's standard, but it was like a new approach, I think, in our school. So when you're 13, you got to choose to specialise. And I chose business, sport, IT. But when I say sport, it wasn't like just doing sport. It was like biology, psychology, physics of an athlete.
Yeah.
Then from there you specialise even more into your A levels, and then you specialise even more at uni, which I think that's the biggest difference, because it seems that like Ukrainian education is loads of subjects, whereas in England at 13 you get to specialise quite soon, right?
True.
How many subjects do you still have, even in the final year?
We have, I guess, 18 subjects.
18 subjects.
That's crazy.
So when
A level is like 3 subjects.
So when I was your age, I had 4 subjects. I had English, literature, business, media, and sports science. So I was already specialised like by the time I was like 16.
Cool.
So I think everyone would be very curious how to choose these 3 or 4 subjects when you are 16. That's the biggest question our families have, because like, how can I choose only 3 or 4 subjects? I don't know what I still want to study in the uni.
That is a question. Like, how do you know at 13 as well when you go to your GCSEs? Because when you're 11 to 13, you're studying history, geography, all of the arts, music, art, drama, information technology, sport, maths, English. You're doing all of it. And then how do you know at 13 what you want to specialise? Some people want to do history, some people want to do business, but how do you... So, that's a debate in itself. Is it right? I'm not sure if it's right, but I'm happy the way I did it. I got to learn about business when I was 13, and we had a really good business teacher at our school. He was actually a businessman and an investor, as well as being a teacher.
Wow, nice.
So we had a lot of experience from him. And then in our sports science teams, we had some guys who were teaching in like the Spanish Tennis Institute. We had people who were in like the Chinese Olympic team who were doing like badminton and stuff. So it was good at that age to specialise, because you're learning from, in our school we were quite lucky with the teachers that we had. But would you have preferred to have specialised, or are you happy doing a multitude of subjects?
I'd love to specialise, really, because there is a lot of stress coping with every subject, and there are 18 of them, as I said, and it's impossible. It's almost impossible to do everything and to be perfect at everything.
Yeah, all the teachers require to be, to focus on their subjects, and all the teachers require to be brilliant on their subject, because it's their subject, so you have to do it, you have to learn, you have to do all the homework, I don't know.
Well, it's not like the student just decides. You get recommended by the teacher. So
did you do, by the way, maybe some psychological test or some aptitude test before?
Not like this, but there's like a point structure. So each course carries a certain amount of points in GCSE. So like business carries a lot. So some people, if they did like drama or music, they don't carry so much, so they can do more subjects. Whereas business, information technology, advanced biology, that takes up a lot of points. So you only have to do a couple of subjects. you get recommended by your teacher. You get like a questionnaire and you tick all the ones that you want, and then the teachers have a list of who are the best performing students. So it's based on, you know, what were the kids good at. You know, if like I wasn't so good at history and I didn't want to do history anyway. I think history is a great subject, but I didn't want to do it. So I didn't choose it, and my teacher didn't recommend me for it. I got recommended for information, sport, business. I think I was recommended for science as well. But yeah, I chose quite early which ones I wanted to do, but there was a system on how you choose. It wasn't just like the kid gets to choose it all. You know, they have a list of what they like. The teachers look at what they're good at, and you know, they try to position the skills. So
Good.
I think that's in the way that it was handled, it was quite good. Yeah.
George, what are your favorite subjects and why?
I guess in recent years I'd say that my favorite subjects are, first of all, English, then actually I like math a lot. I used to like physics a lot too, but you know, everything can be frustrated by a teacher, because actually it depends a lot on a teacher if she or he likes your subject, because if she doesn't, then a student doesn't have any motivation to study it anymore. Well, and also I like history a lot and literature. Even though I'm studying in a math grade.
So we have this, actually, by the way, we have this kind of a system of specializing, like this can be a math school or an English focus or other languages focus school.
Yeah, we have that as well. So
Yes, but still, you know, it's not that you've chosen just these 3 or 4 subjects. You have a specialization, but you still study all the other subjects as well.
So it's fake.
So my experience was the same. I studied in a Lyceum, like two grades before the university, 2 final grades, and my focus was languages as well. Like I studied English and German, and but we studied all the other subjects as well. That's why we had the 6 days system, you know, 6 days, only 1 day off, you know.
Yeah. Well, to be quite frank, the education in England was hard at school. I mean, I remember they would open the school on Easter holidays. They would open the school on half term and all of that for all of the students who had to go in and do extra work. I mean, I was in all the time doing business, because the business course that we were doing was just incredible. The amount of coursework and exams that we had to prepare for, it was, I mean, we'd have one piece of coursework that was like 50 pages. And doing reports on, you know, how did this, you know, so it was, you know, it's I think when you go so deep into it, because you do specialize, you go so deep into it, you can, it's also probably the same amount of work, but maybe it's better. I don't know. So actually I was kind of reading a book about differences in personality in business, like the types of personalities you need to run a business, the type of personalities to work in a business, what positions you need. Like creative people should go more into like the marketing side of it or something like this. So maybe there's something to be said in like what you talked about, psychological test, finding out where people's strengths are and where they match, because really the education system is just, you know, to get people's skills up to match the modern world. Maybe that's like the next step of education, not just teaching everybody everything, but finding where their skills are and, you know, helping them progress in that way.
That's actually what we already started doing in my other project, the School Escape Lab. So it's like after school programs that we teach to the students, and we're introducing psychological test to check the level of the interest of the kids, starting from 7 years old. And then we can see whether they like more of the business approach or creative or science. And then we can place them or advise them to do the science stream or business stream or creative stream.
That's cool.
So we already started doing it, and just wondering whether it's already, I think there are some things that already set up in the UK.
Yeah. Well, when I was choosing my subjects, it was 10 years ago now. So maybe in the last 10 years they developed some new system of finding out where students fit. So George, tell me some horror stories about preparing for your, because I know when we're teaching our lessons a lot of the times, especially Theo as well, Theodore, who wasn't here, always telling me he's got like 6 or 7 subjects to prepare for.
That's crazy.
So what I remember when I was your age is each day was just one subject. Like, okay, today I'm doing my business work. Today I'm doing my English work. Could you imagine something like that?
I can actually, but the reality is just the opposite. So, for example, we can have like, I guess, 6 different subjects a day, and we've gotta prepare homework for each of them. And usually it takes a lot of time, so I can generalize it that way, but usually we don't sleep much because of the homework.
I can prove it because I always found him on our second floor at school.
Just to sleep.
Yeah,
Him and George were always like just trying to get like just 5 minutes rest before the lesson.
Yeah, napping in school. Well, anyway, I think what's even worse is that, especially it applies to Ukrainian literature. Well, when we gotta study something just for exams and not for like benefit in our future life, So just remembering to forget something later.
Yeah.
It kind of
a big trouble of I think our schooling. I want to ask this question. Do you think that the school in Ukraine is it more theoretical or practical, and does it answer the questions of the future? Like, do you study the skills that you would need for the future, or that you just needed to pass the exams and you will forget?
I would say that everything we're given is just for the theory.
For the theory.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever looked into the Finland education system?
Oh yeah.
We had this lesson, didn't we? We talked about the Finland education system, how it's different.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I haven't looked at the data, but according to the video, they're one of the highest performing education systems, and they don't have much homework. The kids have a lot of time to be themselves, and everything is practical. But a lot of emphasis is also on creativity as well, and arts and.
Yeah, I've heard about that too. Also, as far as I know, they are not given any marks, I guess, in first 3 years of studying, whereas we are given.
Yeah, and also in England, you're given a mark, like even from the age of 7, you're given a mark the whole way through.
So what would you change in Ukrainian education system?
Well, probably I would make it more specialized for kids. So that, for example, those guys who want to study, for example, history, languages, or art, they will study. They will be focused on these subjects, and maybe they can study math a bit because math is quite needed and it's needed a lot. But I think being focused on a special subject you're passionate about will enable you to dig up more information about it and advance your skills in it.
Yeah, that's. I by the time I got to university, I already knew about. I already had a good knowledge of sports science. I went to do sports science, and by the time I already got there, I already knew about the biological processes happening in the body. I already knew some basics about sports psychology and some physics as well, and how the body moves. So I would say, if you can, specializing early for me was a good experience. By the time, because it feels like when you get to uni, that's when you learn your subject here in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
So if you do economics, that's when you learn about economics when you're at school, when you're at university. Sorry. Yeah.
It's especially I would say that the subjects like business and economics, they are not a part of the general school curriculum. So you just start, and when you are in the university, the first year and the second year in the university, you study just complete theory as well. Like if it's about economics, then you study the theory of economics, so different schools, approaches, philosophical approaches, and other things. Like lots of theory again, and then you only begin studying something like about practical implement of the business side.
Okay, so I think we should finish there. How did you find the British tea with milk?
It's awesome.
Is it different? Have you had it before?
Actually, I had my mother used to make tea with milk, but she gave up.
And also, I think quite a lot of people who are watching us wonder about your perfect English. So, share your experience. How did you learn English, and how long did it take it for you?
Well, I wouldn't say that my English is perfect anyway, but I just keep on reading different books. I keep on speaking to native speakers, and that's it. I also tried my hand at writing something like essays or even short stories, and that's how you can like improve your English.
Yeah. What are your future plans, and what would be your best advice to those who are just maybe in year 10 or 11 at the Ukrainian school? So what would you advise them to do
Well,
to succeed?
I would say that the best thing you can do is to follow your passion at first, but if it doesn't work out, maybe you can just try to focus on something you really need for your life, and then when you find something that can bring your money, and you can bring your passion to that place. I hope you understand me.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, thanks for joining us. Today we looked at the differences in the education system, and then in the next video we're going to talk about what's it like to be a teenager in the UK versus in Ukraine. So, thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liam.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, Vlad.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you.
Bye.